Thanks for joining me again this week. On Tuesday night, I was part of the virtual United in Service and Support Town Hall. The Council and I were joined by Senator Chris Van Hollen to answer questions from those impacted by government layoffs and federal funding freezes. DOGE cuts have a direct impact on many of our residents and their ability to earn a living. We've already seen a few companies that receive funding from the federal government alert the State Department of Labor about layoffs. These actions will continue to have a ripple effect in Montgomery County. So far, the job losses from these companies are more than 1,000. I'm not talking about the losses from the federal government. As I said at the virtual town hall, it's flat out wrong and unnecessary that our community is facing this level of uncertainty and stress. The changing federal landscape has left many of our residents anxious about what's next. And I know it's exhausting because just when you think things might settle down a little bit, something else shifts. The willful destruction of the federal government and its role in being the protectors and guardians of the American people. All of this is being done in order to pass an enormous tax break for the ultra wealthy. At the county, we're trying to focus on communication with residents and providing reliable information. We'll continue to provide regular updates through webinars, newsletters, community meetings, and other channels. I strongly encourage you to stay connected to these updates because, as many of you know, the news is constantly changing, and unfortunately, rumors and scams thrive in this kind of uncertainty. Please verify anything you hear or see before you take action. While we cannot solve all the problems this administration is creating, we will continue our programs that may be of assistance. On employment, our libraries offer resume building help and access to job-seeking tools like classes, computers, and printers. WorkSource Montgomery also provides resources for job searches and interview prep while being a source of information about open jobs. As of now, we only have 72 non-public safety jobs listed on the county website. But we would welcome any laid-off federal, NGO, or contractor workers to visit work4mcg.com to see if they match for some of them. I also want to emphasize the importance of mental health. These are stressful times and no one should have to feel like they have to navigate it alone. Our crisis help hotline is 240-777-4000. On Thursday and Friday, our Office of Community Partnerships co-hosted workshops focused on partially coping with uncertainty. I will also share more opportunities like this in the future. We have some housing support programs, including eviction prevention funds for residents at risks. The funds are limited, but we do have some. For families facing food insecurity, we've built a multi-layered support system through our Office of Food Resilience. We partner with 49 organizations, and this funding is stable into the upcoming fiscal year. Over 60 MCPS schools have food distribution programs coordinated through partnerships funded by our school-based food assistance program. And through our Farm to Food Bank network, local farms, thanks to our collaboration with Manna Food Center, are providing fresh produce directly to families in need. On my media briefing this week, Department of Health and Human Services leaders encouraged anyone impacted by these cuts to reach out and determine if they're eligible for things like Medicaid assistance or other programs. The Office of Eligibility and Support Services can be reached by calling 240-777-1003. I also want to hear from you. What can Montgomery County government do to better support those who are impacted by federal cuts? What would an in-person community meeting be helpful as we navigate these challenges together? By going to montgomerycountymd.gov/exec, you can watch my latest video, media briefing, and send me a message. We also have weathered tough times before by sticking together, and we're going to do it again this time. This week, we helped launch the U.S. Global Business Center in Rockville. It was established by leaders from our South Korea sister city, Daejeon. My office was honored to host key leaders of the project and the center's new executive director on Monday. The city has a history of interest in international trade, and this office will create a launching pad for Korean businesses here in Montgomery County's innovation centers. This new venture will allow Daejeon Group to strengthen international trade relations and, in their own words, reshape its global business landscape. The seeds for this partnership began in 2017 when then County Executive Leggett led a delegation to Daejeon. Within the last few years, we've strengthened those relationships with a trip involving Chief Administrative Officer Rich Madaleno and then Council President Evan Glass. I've also made multiple trips to South Korea with economic development leaders and businesses from our area. This is an example of how our work grows those relationships through BioKorea and the Smart City conferences, and visits with government and university leaders will continue to be mutually beneficial. I know our counterparts in Daejeon are also very excited about the opening of this international trade office. They believe it marks a decisive milestone, and we're happy to have a role in this. It shows other cities in that region of the world how serious we are about establishing connections with innovative companies and looking to expand into U.S. markets. Speaking of business, this past Friday I had a chance to visit 3 entrepreneurs on a business tour highlighting Black History Month. My first stop was the Tot Space, an appointment-only activity studio for children that gives parents an opportunity to leave their children for imaginative and interactive activities. The Rockville-based business was started by a Bethesda Chevy Chase High School graduate. Next, I visited Hardee's Barbecue Truck, based at the Women's Co-op in Bethesda. The truck is only selling out of that location on Saturdays, but the owner stays busy with catering gigs and takes the truck out on Thursdays and Friday nights. She also works another job helping to support families. Still, she keeps the food truck going and plenty of sauce on hand for the smoked chicken and pork. Finally, I went to the Oaks Bed and Breakfast in Bethesda. The husband and wife team had a vision that they successfully brought to the market. I know they are already planning a business expansion into other parts of the county and state, and I encourage them to utilize the resources of our business center to make it happen. On MontgomeryCountyMD.gov/business, you can find resources for your small business that can help you start, expand, or move your business. We've listened to the needs of the business community and we've made things easier to do in Montgomery County. I know from experience that Montgomery County is known around the world as a welcoming and inclusive place, but it took a lot of work to get us here. During Black History Month, it is important to recognize that one reason people start businesses in Montgomery County is because they feel they can do things here they wouldn't have the opportunity to do in other places. We have been supporting small Black businesses here for a long time, and so have our partners in Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce. Diversity is an asset, and it helps build a strong and connected community. I want to thank every business owner who shared some of their valuable time with me on these visits. I always encourage them to reach out to me directly or the Business Center team, because if they want to be a partner in solutions, we would like to join them. Friday night begins a holy month for Muslims observing Ramadan. It involves daily fasting and prayer with the hope of feeling a common bond within the community, especially with the poor and needy. We are in a time of growing need in our county and frankly our country. Please look out for your neighbors and friends and offer help and support. We need to confront these challenges together to create a better Montgomery County for everyone. Finally, on Monday, Montgomery County honored former County Executive Isaiah Ike Leggett by renaming the Executive Office Building after him. It is a fitting tribute to a man whose life's works embodies the very spirit of this community. I'd like to share my speech from that ceremony to close out this week's video. I'll be back with you again next week with more updates from the Isaiah Ike Leggett Executive Office Building.
It's an incredible honor to stand here today to pay tribute to a man whose leadership and vision shaped this county in ways that will endure for generations. My friend, my predecessor, and a true leader of this county, Isaiah Ike Leggett. Today, we're renaming the Executive Office Building after someone whose life, character, and leadership embody everything Montgomery County stands for, and I can't think of anyone more deserving of this. I worked for Ike with 12 years as a council member when he was executive, but I go back to the time before I was on the council when I got to know Ike. I was a civic activist. I worked with him on numerous occasions, and for many of us in the civic community, we knew that Ike was among a small group of council members who would listen. There were doors you never knocked on. There are doors you didn't care about it. But Ike was one of the few who would take meetings and work with the community and try to solve problems with a perspective that involved the community being able to speak. When he ran for executive, though he was outspent heavily by the usual suspects, I know them, He won that election with support of many community leaders who had the same experiences in working with him that I had. In 6 years of doing this job myself, I've seen the challenges to governing firsthand, experienced the pain of making difficult decisions, the need for flexibility. Ike navigated the Great Recession, 2 years of Trump, a slow recovery, and the need to increase inclusivity and the social commitment and a rapidly diversifying community. And he did it all with grace, humility, and determination. There are a few things I will always remember that I think say a lot about his values. I remember at the beginning of his administration, and he was doing the capital budget. And he brought over a capital budget and told us that things were going to change. Over years, we had refused to build black community centers in this community. And when he got there, they were rotting, literally rotting. When people talk about the condition of a building, they talk about there's not adequate support underneath the wall. And he said that wasn't going to go on. The community centers were going to be a priority, and he made them a priority in his administration. That's not something that always happens. And it happened for the people with the least power and the least voice, but he knew it was the right thing to do, and he had the courage to stand up in front of the council and say, some other people are going to wait because these things need to get done. A second thing that he did that really struck home was that early in his term, he presented a report on rental housing. And a bunch of me and the other likely suspects looked at the report and we thought there was something missing, like there weren't tenants. So I asked for a meeting with him, and I asked him to create a new task force that would bring the voice of tenants to the table and produce a different report. He could have easily said no. He had no reason to say yes. And I was ready for that. But that's not what happened. He said yes, and he let his staff work with us. The product was a landmark, major tenant legislation that for the first time really brought tenant voices to the table. We passed that legislation, a little watered down by certain council members who weren't so happy, but Ike stood by the committee, the work, and the tenants who needed it, and that was remarkable. It's not something they were used to doing. The third thing is, I'll never forget, is the battle for minimum wage, which I think is one of the most important pieces of legislation we've ever done. And this was also something that wasn't easy to get done, and there were a lot of contentious discussions. But in the end, we were able to stand together when he signed the minimum wage bill. He could have stayed away, but that's not what he did. He pulled the support from a report that criticized raising the minimum wage because it was flawed, and even refused to pay them. And by his actions, he made it possible to get a majority on the council that was willing to pass the minimum wage. Those battles aren't hard. They're not the battles you pick if you're looking to rise in the esteem of people who so-called count. But for the people at the bottom, the people who struggle every day, those kind of decisions made a huge difference for them. These are all acts of courage, acts that made it clear that he would support big decisions and hard decisions that would have profound impacts on the lives of people who are often never heard from. There are other things he'll be remembered for: creating policies that embrace the diverse way the county was growing. He's still remembered for the saying that if there aren't enough seats at the table, we'll make it a bigger table. And I remind people of that all the time. As much as we work on diversity now, I make sure people know where that came from, because it wasn't always like that. The weight of this job is heavy. Every decision affects over 1 million people. I carried the weight with a sense of responsibility, compassion, and consciousness, humility, and a purpose that's rare in public service. His life is a reflection of the arc of this county's evolution. When I was growing up, Montgomery County was 95% white, 4.5% black, and 0.5% everybody else. Today we're 16% Asian, 21% black, 22% Hispanic, and somewhere in the 40% everybody else. It's a remarkable transformation that this county has undertaken. And you took the right steps at the right time so that everybody understood this was a journey we were going to take together. And I really appreciate it. There are many counties who have faced similar issues. I don't think any county in this country has done it better than Montgomery County has. and I think you started it. And that's, I think, when we go abroad and we talk to people about why you should come to Montgomery County and bring your businesses here, we talk about our population, who we are, and the diversity of our population, and the fact that you can find any religious group, any cultural group, any food type, or anything else you associate with where you were coming from, and you can find it here in Montgomery County, and you're going to be in a climate where people welcome you instead of wish you would go away. And you take a lot of credit for that. Ike led with an understanding that government should be a force for good, a tool to lift people up and expand opportunity and create a community where everyone has a fair shot. Which brings me quickly to the current president. When I read the DEI stuff and they assert and are crazy enough to write down that if a person's of color or of a different gender, then you can only assume that they're there for some other reason other than their merit. And that's an insult to everybody, and it's one of the nice things about putting that name outside today, because that honor has everything to do with the quality of the work and quality of the person, and nothing to do with somebody trying to accommodate somebody. So this building's going to bear your name, but your true legacy isn't in this building. It's in our neighborhoods, our schools, our parks, our community centers across Montgomery County. It's in the policies that open doors to those who had been shut out, and it's in the lives he's touched, whether they knew his name or not. Ike Leggett didn't just serve this county, he shaped it. In this building, now the Isaiah Ike Leggett Executive Office Building, will stand as a reminder of what principled leadership looks like. It'll remind every county executive who walks through these doors of the standard Ike set, one of compassion, strength, and unwavering dedication to the people he served. I want to say something directly to both of you. Ike, you've left an indelible mark on the county, and though your name will now be etched on these walls, your legacy is written in the heart of this community. And to Catherine, there's an old adage that behind every great man is a great woman. However, this would never apply to you. You were always in front. The farthest back you ever were was by his side. And we always knew that you cared about what he did as much as he cared about what he did. I know Ike would agree, you've never been behind him. You've been his partner. You're the reason why this good man became a great leader and one of the most instrumental people in our county's history. Congratulations, my friend. You've more than earned this. Thank you.